we did with Dr. Sami Al-Arian and a couple of our other previous guests. A part of his resume reads that Dr. Tariq Ramadan is a professor of contemporary Islamic studies at the Oxford University, teaching in two faculties of Oriental Studies and Theology and Religion. He is also Senior Research Fellow and Governing Body Fellow at St. Anthony's College, University of Oxford, and a Senior Research Fellow at Doshisha University in Kyoto, Japan. He is a visiting professor at the College of Islamic Studies, Hamad bin Khalifa University in Doha, Qatar, director of the Research Center for Islamic Legislation and Ethics in Doha, Qatar, and president of the think tank European Muslim Network in Brussels, and a member of the International Union of Muslim Scholars. It goes on from there, but like I said, we want to spend as much time as we can in this conversation that's about to take place. So we will post his resume for all to see later, inshallah. Dr. Ramadan, before we begin our conversation, first of all, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother El-Hajj Mauri. And let me start not only by thanking you for inviting me to this program, but I really want to thank you because I was in jail and I was hearing about your presence and your support for many months and years. And I just want to start by thanking you for, let me put it that way, to put on the right side of history by being vocal about, your brothers and sisters. Not only me, by the way, I am one among so many others you have been supporting over the years. And I just want the people to know who you are as well by being involved in supporting your oppressed and justly accused brothers and sisters around the world. And in fact, it's in one of these cases that we came to one another.
That's right, our sister Aafia Siddiqui. You were the first, alhamdulillah, you were the first national and international figure, to really take a major stage and speak as strongly in defense of Aafia as you did, and that, my brother, to be honest, is what helped me to navigate my way through a lot of what was being said about you in the early days of your ordeal. That remembrance is what helped to navigate me to what I consider to be the appropriate path vis-a-vis your struggle. But before we go any further, brother, I want to share something with the audience that just recently came to my attention. It's an open letter from a long list of signatories. And many of these folk on this who have signed on to this open letter are folk that I am familiar with, most of them by reputation, but these are many prominent figures from different parts of the world. And the open letter is a call to the French Minister of Justice to immediately cease. This is the title: calling on French Minister of Justice to immediately cease masquerade of justice in Professor Tariq Ramadan's case. And I'm going to share with the audience before we begin our conversation what the substance of this letter is. It was addressed to the Madam Minister of Justice of France. As international scholars, politicians, social activists, and journalists, we are writing to you, the French Minister of Justice, to demand an immediate halt to the indictment of the Tariq Ramadan case. This process has gone on far too long by the French investigating judges. they're named. I'm not going to try to pronounce their names for fear of, doing injustice to them. I'm not fluent in French. But he goes on to say their bias, lack of impartiality, neglect of key evidence, delaying of key information, and ignoring investigations brought forward by the French Criminal Division has been astonishing. In their role as investigating judges, quote unquote, it is surprising that they have chosen to ignore exculpatory evidence and suspicious connections between the plaintiffs and longtime critics of Professor Ramadan. Let us be clear. We, the signatories of this letter, endorse France's commitment to uphold the values of liberty, equality, and fraternity threatened today around the world. It is not for us to judge Tariq Ramadan's guilt or innocence. We fully recognize the rights of the plaintiffs to have their case heard without prejudice. However, we wish to remind the country that has affirmed the inalienability of human rights and equality, of the importance of respect for the principles that ensure the integrity of French justice. It has been 2 years since Professor Ramadan was indicted, 9 months of which were spent in pretrial solitary detention, despite the chief prison medical authority confirming his health was incompatible with incarceration due to illness. Professor Ramadan was also denied access to his case file and thus to the necessary means of preparing his defense. His right to a speedy judicial process has been ignored. Since his release in November 2018, the turn of events has been even more worrying. The following are a few examples. The judges mandated an expert psychiatrist, Dr. Daniel Zaguri, to see if there was a notion of psychological grip on the plaintiffs, an extremely rare procedure. The whole case depends now on his report. This is a clear conflict of interest, as Dr. Zaguri is an active member of the pro-Zionist Shibboleth Association, which is ideologically opposed to Professor Ramadan. He also has friendly links with the opposing counsel, and the two counsels are named, the co-counsels. We request that he recuse himself immediately. The fourth complainant was completely invalidated by the criminal division. The judges and prosecutors continued to hear her complaint until she recanted, and it was clearly determined she did not even know Tariq Ramadan. The two of the complainants, the one who was removed from the case and the other who remains in the case, have both publicly stated on social media that they have been pushed and manipulated by the Israeli-French paparazzi Jean-Claude El-Fassi. The criminal division discovered that the latter has actually been in touch with the four plaintiffs. He himself acknowledged on I-24 TV channel he was in touch with the fifth complainant in Switzerland. Surprisingly, after 28 months of investigation, Jean-Claude El-Fassi has not been heard by the investigating judges. Secondly, the judges have indicted, or thirdly, the judges have indicted Tariq Ramadan on the basis of two witnesses whom they have not even questioned and whom they encourage to come forward, even though they did not file a complaint, which is quite interesting, to say the least. Has Professor Ramadan been granted in the equal treatment so prized by France when high-ranking political figures, artists, and film producers accused of similar offenses have their rights protected like a gold standard? Is there one form of justice for Muslims in France and another for everyone else? In short, we respectfully ask, has Professor Ramadan benefited from a fair and equitable legal process, one in which he is presumed innocent until proven guilty? And then it ends with a call to action. We appeal to your commitment to France's reputation as a defender of justice. We trust that as the Minister of Justice, you will respond to our appeal and address our concerns, that a fair and just process be implemented. In particular, we suggest that if the magistrates in charge of Tariq Ramadan's case are not able to properly do their work with the impartiality required by the judiciary's code of ethics, They should be removed and replaced by truly impartial judges. And then it's, two or three actually more than 3 long pages of signatories, and many of them very prominent academics from different parts of the world. With that a bit of introduction out of the way, Dr. Ramadan, let's get into the meat of this conversation with the first question, my question to you being, how is your health? How is your health at this stage of this whole process?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Again, so thank you for reading the letter, which is an important letter, an important international call. Now, as to my health, it's to tell you the truth, much better than when I was in jail, because when I got out from jail, I was unable to walk. I was using a walking frame, and it was very difficult for me. Over the 10 months I was in jail, I had constant, headache. It was very difficult, have lots of problems. I was taking more than 14 drugs daily, and they were just giving them to me in order for me not to complain and just to be silent, not really dealing with my health and with my specific multiple sclerosis, which is what I am now dealing with as to my health. So over the last 1.5 years, things were better at the beginning, but now I'm in a state where I'm just going to have an MRI tomorrow, in fact, just because my situation is not so good for the time being. But alhamdulillah, I'm able to fast. I'm able to contemplate, to meditate, to pray. For a long time, it was unable even to pray normally. I had to be on a chair and everything. But now it's alhamdulillah. I should be alhamdulillah ala kulli hal, and pray for me that in the near future things are going to be easier on that side.
Alhamdulillah. I'm glad to hear that. Because I was aware of the fact that you were confined to a wheelchair, and there was a lot of discussion about whether or not you would be able to walk again. So to hear that you have significantly recovered from that is alhamdulillah. That's something to be grateful for. Now, my brother, you and I know that you have become a very polarizing figure across the board. As I noted in the beginning, there appears to be very little common ground in the middle where it comes to Tariq Ramadan. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to try to have a productive conversation without caving into the roar of the mob on either side. Just have a very productive conversation about this whole ordeal that you have been engulfed in over the past, it's been over 2 years, a little over 2 years. And without getting into any salacious details, we don't need to do any of that. But, we need to, for the integrity of this conversation, weigh into what opened the door to this, what made it possible for your enemies to engage in this full frontal attack on you internationally, and what has, in all fairness, in all honesty, caused even many of your Muslim supporters to back away from you. As you could imagine, when we announced that we were going to be doing this interview, we got quite a bit of response, both positive and negative. One of the negative responses that we got, I want to share with you and get you to respond to it. One of the brothers sent this message to me, quote, "I hope critical questions are welcome. My main issue here is if his admission of his sexual affairs with Islamophobes disqualify him from being someone we can take knowledge from. He didn't only let his family down with his indiscretion, but anyone who defended him tooth and nail, saying he was incapable of doing the things he admitted to on camera with his wife next to him, looking like a politician who has fallen from grace. Why should anyone continue to buy his books and not have them all removed from our libraries and syllabi for our youth? How do you respond to a Muslim who has this opinion of you in the wake of this controversy? How do you respond?"
Look, I think first that just to start with the facts, I never admitted this with my wife sitting near to me. This is not what happened in France, and this is not they try to portray me. Now, so this is it's not like a politician. This is something I didn't do, and I was not involved in this. What is important for my sisters and my brothers in Islam is to know, and this is what I did, that I acknowledge that I made mistakes, and not only mistakes. This was wrong, and my behavior was wrong, and I admitted this. And what I had to say to my brothers and sisters is I apologize, because I know that many of you were disappointed knowing that this could happen. So that's the first step, the acknowledgement of things that I did, knowing at the same time that I apologize for me to having disappointed you. But at the end of the day, there is something here that should be clear. This is between God and myself and my family. So the moral judgment that some of our brothers and sisters are having and just condemning you is just, look, you might not know the whole story. Yes, I made mistake, but do you know what happened before? What are the causes? What was my life? In which way I was? What was my personal vulnerabilities and fragilities? You don't know about this. So it's not for you to judge. The only thing that you have to do, if you love me, you keep silent and you pray for me. And if you don't like me, and if it's unbearable for you, just you remain silent and just you stay away from me, and I can understand that. That's the moral attitude in Islam. The moral attitude in Islam is not to get a definitive judgment or a final judgment on somebody saying that you are bad because you did this. By the way, in Islam, you judge the behavior. You don't judge, or you don't have a final judgment on the being, because in fact, what I went through, it's a gift. I thank God for giving me this opportunity to go through this ordeal just to come back close to Him again. So now I am talking to you saying, I'm much more at peace with myself and with Allah than I was before. So look, you are listening to me where I was struggling, and now you want to just don't listen to me because I went through something which is a call from God telling me, now come back to me, come back to the essential. So this is one thing which is important. And if I may just add something about the reality of the community. Let me be clear. I said three things to the community when I was talking. As never idealize a scholar, a leader, or anyone, even the Prophet ﷺ. When it comes to the worldly dimension, he was but a human being. So he's the only one who was for us the perfect human being. Now, the perfect human being. Doesn't mean that he was perfect, but he was among the imperfections of human being, the perfect model. Now, for me, I always said I'm trying my best to be at the level or to live up to the principles I'm promoting. And I'm but a human being, and you don't have to confuse the message with the scholar or with the lecturer or the leader. So I was just trying my best. And I think that when you confuse the two, that's a problem, which is something that I said, be careful with the charismatic leader and with the idealized figure that you have, because at the end of the day, you are confusing everything. You end up following somebody, not following the message. This is one. The second thing that I also, I was always adding in my relationship to the community is, please, you can be disappointed with what I did, but at the same time, you have to be clear on, I was exposed to political traps. And what we know now about all these cases is that I never compromised my Islamic principles with Islamophobes and with women who were against Islam in such a way. It never happened. Now, we know now that at least for 3 out of the 4, one I never met, and the 3 others, 2 of them were preparing a trap before meeting with me. And in fact, they were sent by far-right parties, Islamophobes and Zionists. So this is known now. You know, the paparazzi that is mentioned in the letter, know, and he knows all the plaintiffs. He knows all them, and they are talking about money. So you also have to understand that I was exposed to something because of what I represented and what was my political positioning on the issue. Last point, if at one point in all my life, over the last 30 years, I compromised or I was not clear on one of the Islamic principles that we are promoting, you are right to just forget about me. But don't come now after 30 years and say, okay, all what you have produced, all your thoughts, everything you did is wrong because of your behavior. I'm sorry. Is there one Islamic principle that I betrayed as to the public discourse that I had as who we should be? Of course, my personal life is my personal life, but did I taught or was I teaching something which was against the Islamic principles? Did I compromise or betray the Muslim communities as to the necessity of facing dictators or Israeli policy or the Palestinian rights or the rights of the oppressed? So I find it quite tough by some of my sisters and brothers to come to me now and say, you know what, because of what you did to yourself, because I did it to myself, I didn't do it to you, we are just forgetting about all your production, all your thoughts. Your thoughts end up to be as bad as you are. And I think that that's not what Islam or what the Islamic teachings are all about. That's not the way we have to deal with our brothers and sisters in Islam.
Points well taken, my brother. I have in front of me, and I'm so glad that I thought to print this out as a reminder of it being one of the reference points in our conversation. Not long before you were released in November of 2018, not long before you were released, you wrote a meditation. You titled it Meditation from Behind and Beyond the Bars. And one of the things that you said, I just read just a couple of passages from what you said in this meditation. You said, I was unfair to myself, as the Quran states, and the apparent paradox is that the injustice, both judicial and political, that I suffered finally allowed me to do justice to my heart and to my being spiritually. They wanted to stain me through the media externally, but in reality, God offered me cleansing and resilience internally and intimately. Some trials are blessings. which is what you just noted. This experience is and will be my liberation. I promise you that. Inshallah, I will come out of it stronger. For some of you, and this is a very important point, you just mentioned this, I'm going to reiterate it. You stated it in this meditation. For some of you, the challenge is a little different. It is important with wisdom to attach oneself to the message and not emotionally to the person. This is learned through difficulties and life's suffering. This is how one can forgive and move on. Very important point. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you, brother, during the month of Ramadan, because this is the month of inner jihad for us all. It is also a month for repentance. It is a month of forgiveness. It is a month for reconciliation. And that's the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you, Tariq Ramadan, in this blessed month of Ramadan. In Kitab al-Tawbah, the book of repentance, in Sahih Muslim, Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, reported the last messenger of Allah as saying, by Allah, Allah is more pleased with the repentance of his servant than how one of you would be on finding the lost camel in the waterless desert. And I'm also reminded of the words of Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah. He said, a calamity that brings us closer to Allah is better for us than a blessing that causes us to forget the remembrance of Allah. And so, you know, my hope and my prayer is that this ordeal that you have been through, that your family has been through, will make you stronger, will make you more of a formidable opponent to the dark forces that have this entire global community at risk. Dark forces that have opened the world up to what I consider to be a punishing wake-up call from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the form of this pandemic. And your voice is one that is, in my humble opinion, much too valuable. The work that you've done, the legacy of struggle that you have paved up until now is much too important for it to just be thrown away, they're just wasted. But we also know that in order for this process of reapproachment with you, with your Lord, you with yourself, the integrity of yourself, you with your community, in order for that to take place, much of it rests on the shoulders of Dr. Tariq Ramadan himself. And so again, you know, I'm really pleased to have this. Go ahead.
Yes, I think you are right, but I also think that you know, everything in life is a teaching. Everything in life should be a lesson. And I would like my, you know, I wrote books and I gave, I don't know how many lectures around the world. And as much as my lectures and my books were something to study, I would like my sisters and my brothers to understand that my life is also something to study. And out of this, you have to draw lessons. And the first one is, you know, I was exposed and I was having, you know, my life over the last 30 years was all about travelings and meeting people and talking and serving. Now, I would like our sisters and brothers to understand the moral side of the equation at one point is none of your business. That the only thing that you should also get and hope for your brother in Islam is for him to go through the process that you are talking about, the tawbah, resilience, and understanding that, you know, God is testing the one he loves. That's a hadith, sahih. And that for me, it was a sign of his love towards me after all these years to just call me back before I die, and just to give me time to become a better human being. And once we say this, we should stop every day, every time, day in, day out, to come back to the issue and say, okay, it's about tawbah. I know that, but I'm not talking about you now, but I'm talking about some who are always saying, okay, we know there is no rape and we know you are innocent, but still there is this, and they are repeating the moral dimension of the test as if they are obsessionally focusing on this. This is not helping your brother to move on. It's just helping you to focus on his weaknesses, and that's not healthy. In the moral side of the equation, as Muslims, we know Allah was Sattar. He's the one who is covering. And you, man satara mu'minan fi dunya, satarahu Allah fi dunya wal akhirah. The one who cover his brother and his sister in this world, Allah will protect him in this world and in the hereafter. So I'm just saying to the brothers and the sisters, okay, now that's for me to know what I have to do, and I can tell you, and I promise, as I wrote when I was in jail, that all my life now is to serve better, and until I read the last, inshallah, I will serve the message and serve justice and dignity and al-ihsan, and ta'bud Allah ka'annaka tara, as if I was seeing God and trying my best to do that. This is the moral side of the equation. But I would tell my sisters and my brothers that at one point, it's enough to talk about the moral side for you to remain silent when you don't get that the whole issue, it's first and foremost a political trap, a political setup to make a voice disappear from the scene, because he's talking about the fact that we, as Muslims, we are Western Muslims, we are American Muslims, we are South African Muslims, we are European Muslims, and Islam is a European religion, is an American religion, and you have to deal with it. And we are telling the Islamophobes, make what you want, say what you want, we are here to build this country with you. And this is our destiny, and we will do our best for these countries to be better tomorrow than they are today. This is something which was unacceptable by all the far-right parties, Islamophobes, and something which is now normalized as a discourse. But it's not only this. It's also that I was vocal towards the Arab countries and the dictators. Look at what is happening. You know that story, this ordeal that we are talking about? Mm-hmm. Oh, and where was it covered the most as to the media? In Arab countries, in Egypt under the dictator, in the Emirates, or in Saudi Arabia. I'm banned from Saudi Arabia. Why? Because I'm saying there is no way for us to deal with government if there is no freedom and dignity for the people. And mainly in the center of our religion. Geographically, the center is now under occupation and corruption. So we know what I'm facing. And I was saying this. Now, we also have, I was told in France, you want to be acknowledged in this country, Tariq? Please keep quiet about Palestine. I'm saying I will never keep quiet about Palestine. And I have to, and so I'm seeing now some of my brothers and sisters who yesterday were inviting me, come and talk. Now they are using the moral side of the equation of this story to keep quiet and to disappear, as to saying clearly, we know why he was targeted. We know why now his life was exposed, because in fact it was because he was a target. I knew this for the last 20 years. I was told so. I was banned from the United States of America for 6 years by Islamophobes and Zionists, because they were scared of, be careful with this leader, because he's making people aware of their rights and being people aware of the global picture, in which way we as Americans, we have to deal with international issues. And I was coming to the States and I was saying, you know what? I'm not going to keep quiet about the migrants or immigrant Muslims coming from Arab countries who now are unable to talk to the American and the Black Muslims. I'm coming from a history where my roots are closer to Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, than what you are doing now. So you are talking about him because he passed away. But the reality is that on the ground, where are the Muslims, leaders of Arab organizations, dealing now with the very issue of racism in the United States? We are sharing the dream of America while we have to come to the nightmare Malcolm X was talking about, the nightmare, and the nightmare is racism. And the problem is that Islam is against racism, but many American Muslims are not completely clear about the way they deal with their brothers and sisters, Black Muslims or Latinos Muslims today in the country, or even people of other faiths. So I know, and I want this to be clear because you are inviting me, and I know that we are sharing this struggle. I'm sorry, you cannot fall into the trap of the West condemning me on the moral side to make my political voice unheard and silenced. If you do this, you are complicit of a political game using morality, because they don't care about Islamic morality. They don't care. They are not using. The only time they love it is when they can use it against the Muslim. That's right. They like it. They like more moral. He's not, consistent. So my promise today to my brothers and sisters, so it's the promise of, it's the healing process. A healing process is shifa, the spiritual healing, the physical healing, and more importantly, I want, insha'Allah wa insha'Ar-Rahman, remain faithful to the Islamic principles in supporting the spiritual path that is our path, but also the path of justice and dignity for all of us in the West, but everywhere in the world. I don't think that we can be silent today by dealing with, okay, I want to show that I am a good American, I'm a good American citizen, I'm a good European citizen. I am keep quiet about, what is happening in Burma, what is happening in China, what is happening, not only there, but either way, don't go very far. Don't go very far. Just look at your prisons in the United States of America. How many innocents are there? How many people are there? So I was talking like this for the last, for the last 13 years. This is my way. So now to use this to justify your silence, I'm very happy, that out of this, with this 150, scholars who came with this, many were quite clear. We know it's a political issue. And we are not. Tariq Ramadan is targeted because he is a Muslim figure and he's vocal. And this is why you want him to keep quiet. You want to give a lesson. I want the people to understand, to do exactly the opposite of some of our brothers and sisters are doing today. This is exactly what they want. They want to silence you by telling you, you see what we are doing with Tariq Ramadan, we can do it with every one of you. So
that's right. That's right.
And be vocal.
Dr. Ramadan, where is your case today? Where exactly is your case? Are you still under house arrest? I mean, the entire globe is under house arrest with this pandemic, but are you still under judicial house arrest?
I'm on the, yes, I cannot leave France today. So I'm based in Paris and I cannot leave France. We have asked 3 times for me, and especially for medical reasons, I wanted to go back to London to see my doctor there, but they refused us. But as to the case itself, what you should know now, it's over the last weeks, they were trying to make a media coverage of, there are other things that were discovered, and Tariq Ramadan is trying to use the dark web to get some information about the woman. What we have now, which is changing the whole case, is for the last 10 years, the connections between the plaintiffs and some of the main enemies that I have on the ideological ground. The first was, of course, what you mentioned, is also this expert and psychiatrist who was get this mandate to do it. And he's within an organization. Within this organization, 16 members were targeting me over the last 10 years and saying that I'm an Islamist. I'm, of course, the grandson of Hassan al-Banna, and I'm working to destroy France, and I'm against the secular system. So trying, and mainly all supporting blindly the policies and the different policies and the successive policies of the Israeli government. So we know who they are. But more importantly, as I told you, now we have the connection that they were starting to prepare a plan. And they were talking about money with some of the people in order to destroy my reputation and to make me fall. This is it. Now we are starting the process, the procedure with the Swiss plaintiff. And what we got, this was last month. In 2009, she's talking to the French-Israeli paparazzi about telling him her story and asking for money. So it's about money. This is what we have in the fight. And even my lawyer, and by the way, they are changing my strategy now. We are going to be much more assertive in the way now we go for the political side of the equation here, by showing, oh, how come you are ignoring all these facts? In 2009, you're asking more money, and you come in 2020 and you say, I was under his grip. Under his grip, you can plan, you can have something which is a trap, and now you come and you say, no, I was, no. So this is here, by the way, and with the Swiss plaintiff, there was not even a relationship. It was not, it never happened. So we have now many, and there is one I never met, a second, nothing happened, and two were in fact in touch with my enemies. One is saying 4 days before meeting me, I'm going to invite him to a room and we will ask a paparazzi to come and to take picture. It was a trap. They had this in mind. So all the evidence that we have now for the case are going in the right direction. Our problem now is the judges are only taking the charges and trying to push in a direction saying, yes, maybe it was not exactly rape, but they were under his grip. What we got with, the Weinstein process and the whole thing, the same notions that we have here. But we are very confident, and this is where the coming weeks and months are going to be very critical, because all what we have now is just showing it didn't start 2 years ago. It started in 2009. And all we have, all the people we have 3 women. Around them, you find all my enemies. The first one, which is known who is known in France, is Caroline Forest, and a journalist who wrote 2 books about me, Yann Amel, and another one who is this paparazzi, and who were asking for testimonies to promote or to trap me and to act against me, because he was saying this Tariq Ramadan is, and if you listen to what he's saying, he's saying to my brother, my Jewish brother, come now to Israel and leave this country that is being Islamized. Islamized by whom? One of the leaders, Tariq Ramadan. So this is the people we are facing. So I would like my sisters and my brother to understand that this case is important, not because of me. This case is important because the symbol and what is happening beyond it. If now, if one of your brothers who was with you serving the message and promoting justice, equality, and our presence, and being vocal in the world and in every single nation, now he is targeted in such a way, it could happen to any one of you. But now be careful. If you are silent with me, now don't come to us tomorrow when it's going to happen to you and say, why are you silent? Because you are silent. Now it's time to be aware, politically involved, and not to accept to use the Me Too movement or any kind of movement and just to target people who are now trying to be vocal. I'm sorry to say that I see more courage in some of our brothers and sisters in humanity who are not Muslims than with the Muslim community, with people who yesterday were the first to come. Oh, come, because the crowd is coming to our lectures and our conventions. And so you invited me yesterday to get the crowd, and now you're forgetting about me when the real issue is at stake. The real issue is what is before God, is your attitude. Are you condemning? First, you are doing two things that are wrong. Morally condemning your brother and politically forgetting about him. So it's a moral and political mistake that you are indulging in, and I think this should not be the way. So I'm saying all this for our listeners to understand. Make my case a book, a teaching. Understand what is at stake, not for one person, but for what is happening. This is exactly what they want, to target the symbols, to spread fear within the community in order not to let anyone being vocal in the future. That's what they want.
Dr. Ramadan, on that note, as you're no doubt well aware, there are quite a number of very impressive, in many respects, up and coming young scholars and leaders in the Muslim community, as well as outside the community, the Muslim community, but specifically as it pertains to the Muslim community, the young scholars and the young activists and the young leaders that are emerging, that are getting more and more of the spotlight within the Muslim quote unquote establishment, and some even outside the Muslim establishment. What kind of what advice would you give to them, those who are up and coming leaders, scholars, especially those who are getting this visibility? How would you advise them in order to both enable them to be effective and also to protect themselves?
Yes, I think it's a good question. It's a good question because we have to be wise. We have, and the point is, okay, you should be visible. You should try your best to be in the best position within your society or within your universities and within your organizations. So I think that this is important to be quite clear on. Do your best and try your best, and there is nothing wrong to find a good position within the American or the European societies or wherever in South Africa or elsewhere. You should try your best to be in the right position, in the best position, in order to be the more effective in your work, the way you talk, what you are producing, the books you write, and everything. Now, this is important. And you have, yes, to protect yourself. And the best protection, by the way, and we can see this with my own case, should be as much as you can. Even if you are weak sometimes and you are vulnerable, try to make it as an essential objective. The dimension of moral consistency. Try your best, because you should know that the strength of your opponents comes first from your own weaknesses. They will play with it. They will try to play with this to find, and you know how it works today, through all what we have, the power of internet, the power of the people who are just even knowing exactly what you are watching on your own laptop. They know who you are. They have exactly the right, the right picture of who you are, what you are doing, in which way you are dealing. They know your psychological profile better sometimes than yourself. They know who you are. So you have to struggle with your own self. The best protection is first consistency and personal commitment. And I think that, and this is why I'm saying, Alhamdulillah, I'm much more powerful. They made me, as to my struggle, much more powerful today than I was yesterday, because now I'm dealing with the issue and I know what consistency and in which way with Allah and relying on Him and tawakkalu ala Allah, this is the way. So I think that the first protection is this. Now, I would say that within your society, have enough connections with your Muslim community, but also beyond the Muslim community, with people of other faiths, because this is very important. It should be clear that your struggle is not only within my community, among my brothers and sisters in Islam, and that's it. No, it's wider than this. And you know, when I was banned from the United States of America in 2004, the greater supporters were not the Muslims, by the way. Of course, I had supporters, but I had, you know, the many, you know, human rights organization, ACLU, and the American Organization of University Professors. They were all involved because they saw that this was just outrageous, so they were supporting. So it's important when you are within your society to have the connections of all the people of goodwill, all the people who are promoting good and justice, not only your brothers and sisters, because you should know, and this is out of experience, not for myself. I saw it so many times with all the cases we were talking about with Dr. Sami Al-Arian, and so many others. Where was the community at one point? They were all scared. So we should know this, that the community is not always there. You know, even myself, I was banned from the United States of America. We sent even a CD with a lecture to be put during one of the conventions. They were scared to put it. As if, you know, the Bush administration is telling you, no, he cannot enter the country, but let him speak. No, we are scared of this. So there is a great deal of fear within our community. So for any new leader, the young, they should know that spiritual life is the first protection. Connections with your fellow citizens and brothers and sisters is the second protection. And the third thing, which is important, don't sell your religion and your principles in the name of social and professional success. If this is the price to pay, it means you are lost. You lose everything if you go that way. So you have to be clear. Your position in the society is to help you to be more heard and more vocal and more consistent, with wisdom, of course. Don't go and say, you know, crazy things. You have to say the truth. You have to have this word of truth before and in front every leader, but not at the price of, don't understand your social success and your leadership at the price of your principles. This is not, and let me be clear, if you are at one level, if you are a professor within a university, if you are a leader of one organization, you should understand that in Islam, power is to serve the powerless. Power has a meaning. Your power should be used to serve the powerless. Your position of authority within the society is to help the people who are wrongly in prison, who are oppressed, who are unjustly treated. If your voice is just to please your audience, is to get, you know, to sell your books and to be perceived as professor or doctor or whatever, if this is what you want, it means, I'm sorry to say it, this is shirk. Shirk means that your service to God is confused with your own personal, you know, positioning. And this is, I'm sorry, I see it, I see it, I'm seeing it right now, that some of our brothers are confusing their personal success with a kind of shirk in their aqidah. Wallahu a'lam.
Dr. Ramadan, one final question. We unfortunately, you know, we have time limitations, and I wish we could speak for a whole nother hour or two, brother. But all good things must come to an end. I have one final question that I'd like for you to elaborate on. Right now, the global community is in the throes of a punishing pandemic. Right here in the United States, we are considered to be the eye of the storm. We are the epicenter, a term often used, of this global pandemic. Sheikh Abdullah Hakim Quick, another brother who I have a lot of respect for, he referred to this, what the world is going through right now, as an opportunity for reset, for a reset. I see it the same way. But I also, not because of Muslims per se, but because of the majesty, the power, the purity of the Quran and the prophetic Sunnah, what has been given to all of humanity, we are in a very unique position to help navigate a positive reset. What do you say about that? What are your thoughts on the opportunity that has at the very least theoretically has come our way in the wake of this pandemic for helping to navigate a more positive reset for the world? Your thoughts?
I think that there are two ways, and there are two, I would say, two ways to look at the whole picture. And we have to be at the same time lucid and aware of the challenges that are coming, and at the same time knowing in which way we have to behave and what are the opportunity. The first dimension, the first picture, and what we have to consider. I'm always saying to my sisters and brothers in humanity and in Islam, please don't be naive with what we are witnessing today. We are looking at the pandemic and we think, okay, the epicenter, it could be the US. Before that, it was the European countries. It's moving, but it's very much in the West that things are now changing, and they are very, very, very troubling times and worrying. Now, I would say, don't be naive. This is a step where the economic order, the political order, the relationship of the economic order, which is shaken now by this global pandemic, because everything has stopped and the money now we don't know what is going to happen. The relationship between this economic state and the role that we can see now with the political situation with states everywhere in Europe, and not only in Europe, it happened in China, it happened in Asian country, are now using this situation to make the citizens accept more control on many dimensions of their life. Means that this could be a new step after 2001 for the capitalist order and the capitalist democratic societies to add to what is happening more surveillance and more control on our life. And it may be that beyond the pandemic, the new economic order, which is the new economic order that we are witnessing, will be much more relying on surveillance and all the technological ways they have now to put us in a situation where they decide for us many things. So it could be a less free democratic system with a new economic order that is coming, much more in line with the democratic Chinese order coming from the East. We have to be aware that it's very, very, very tricky and very dangerous. And we have to be aware that this could come back to us, accepting for our governments to control us more in the name of our security. We accepted this after 2001. Now it's a global thing that is coming to us. So I don't think that we have to be naive with this, because this is the reality of, and Trump, as questionable as some of his statements could be, when he is targeting China and saying what is happening and is coming from China, he is wrong as to the way he put it. He was wrong. But the reality of this competition between two systems, two economic systems, two ways to deal with the global economic system, I think he's right. He understood that something is going to change now and shifting towards the East, and we have to be aware of that. Now, as for us, within this, we can feel that we are powerless and nothing could be done because it's too big. It's very big, by the way. But as we are dealing with our fellow citizens, this is the time, again and again, to get the big picture, not to be naive about it, to know that we are going to face very difficult times, and we are going to face a new type of capitalism based on free market and controlled citizens. That's the reality of it. Free market and controlled citizens. This is what we want, and we want us to be consumers and to buy. Don't think too much and buy very much and buy more and more. That's the way forward. So we should understand that we are surrounded by fellow citizens who are facing exactly the same reality as us. This is the time for us to talk about what is true freedom, what is spiritual liberation, what is our commitment towards justice in our society. So this is what, at one point I was misunderstood when I was saying this. I was responding to old Muslim scholars and the traditional scholars saying, there is Dar al-Harb and Dar al-Islam. And I saying Dar al-Harb and Dar al-Islam don't longer exist. We are now in a global order, is Dar al-Shahada. Dar al-Shahada is the abode of witness, to bear witness to the truth. We have to do this everywhere on earth, by the way, even in Muslim majority countries. But in the West, knowing what we are facing, this is the time for us to be shahid ala nas. I was always saying Malcolm X in his time was shahid wa shaheed. He was killed, but he was a witness. He was bearing witness to his message, and he paid the price. We today, in the global world of Shahada, we have to be witnessed. We have to be witnesses. How? By leading the people towards what we think is the right path. And the right path is, we are aware of the global challenges. We are not naive about the capitalist order. We are not naive about the dream that is sold to us, telling us, welcome to the free market as consumers, and welcome to the new control citizens. We know what you want, and we know what is good for yourself. We have to come with a message of liberation. And liberation is the spiritual liberation, is the ethical, and being ethically assertive about what we want. It's about human beings, dignified, free, and promoting critical thinking. We should be the leading force within our societies for critical thinking, not repeating the consensus and repeating what is said on the media. We should just resist all this. So this is where our spiritual commitment here, it's a critical time. But I don't think that we should end up saying, you know what, we went through the confinement, we were on our own, it's all about meditation, and the world tomorrow will not be the same. I'm sorry to tell you, this is bad news. The world tomorrow is going to be worse than what we are experiencing now, because this is the way we are heading. And وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. So we know it's leading towards something which is not positive. We, as Muslims, every opportunity, every single situation, as this one, showing to our fellow citizens, you know what? we are facing the same challenges as you. But for us, التوحيد, our way of relying on God, is helping us to say, whatever you try to do to control us, our freedom is in our heart. And out of this freedom in our heart, we'll go to show you what it means in our society to be involved in promoting justice, resisting injustice and discrimination. We will be the voice of those who are talking for nature, because we are by definition supporting the protection of nature. We will be those vocal about, what is happening in our jails, what is hidden in our society. So I would say it's the time to be visible, but in a new way. When we are facing a society of control, let us show our fellow citizens how free we are.
Alhamdulillah. That is a very good point to end on, my brother. I want to thank you so much for spending this time with us. I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for blessing us with this ability to reconnect. I want to thank Salam Media once again for inviting me to become a part of their family and to utilize this platform to enjoin the good and forbid the evil, bi'idhnillah. And I want to wish all of my Muslim brothers and sisters, beginning with you, Dr. Tariq Ramadan, and your family, with blessed final days of the month of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us to come out of this month stronger, mentally, physically, spiritually, than we were when we began it. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless those of us who are on the right path to die not except in a state of Islam. Thank you, my brother.
Allah barik fi, jazakallah. Thank you for inviting me, and may Allah accept our fasting and our prayers, inshallah.
Ameen. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.